Well, hi everyone, Shaun Humphries here with Assante Capital Management. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about a retirement coaching program. And so why would you consider a retirement coaching program? What would be the value around that kind of program? Well, if you're beginning to think about retirement, if that's something that's sort of now on the horizon for you, it's absolutely critical that you get good quality coaching in this area. And one of the reasons for that is that retirement income planning and retirement planning generally has a profound impact on almost every area of our lives. In fact, when you think about the various transitions we go through in life, you can't think of a transition that is much more profound than transitioning into retirement. So you think of, a sense of purpose and meaning that you get through your work. That may go through a bit of a change when you transition to retirement. Your social networks and your relationships often go through challenges and changes. Even things like a sense of purpose and how you get meaning out of life can go through some challenges when you go through a retirement transition. And even health has an impact. And so there's a lot of issues, emotional, psychological, relational, physical, and of course financial, that are impacted. The financial piece is critical because at the end of the day, retirement is not one of those things that you want to apply for a redo. There's a lot of planning that needs to be done. And once you transition to retirement, it's very difficult to unretire. So you want to make sure you've really done your homework and you've got a good solid plan. When we think about it, over the last 30 years, we've walked hundreds of families through the retirement transition. There's really three phases. One is the phase leading up to retirement where you're getting all your ducks lined up and making sure all that preparation phase is looked after. And then you've got the transition phase where you're beginning to move into retirement and then being retired. And being retired doesn't mean it's over. It means that there's an ongoing process of making sure you're tracking in the right direction. Now, when we think about retirement, there are challenges, and this is one of the reasons why it's, I think, critically important to have a coach to walk alongside of you. Now, at a subconscious level, three of the major challenges that people think about, at least subconsciously, and sometimes they articulate them as well at a conscious level, is number one, I don't want to have more life than income. So people have a concern about outliving their capital, and that concern, it doesn't seem to matter whether someone has a very significant net worth or someone who has a moderate net worth. It's one of those concerns that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. The next concern relates to, that's longevity risk. The next concern will be inflation risk. Wanting to make sure that, as inflation continues to erode purchasing power potentially, that you have strategies in place and a game plan that allows you to cope with the negative impacts of inflation. And then the last subconscious concern, sometimes it's conscious, is market risk. In other words, Shaun, I don't want to retire and all of a sudden have the market implode at the very time that I'm making that transition. That's a critical risk to take a look at, and there are obviously strategies that need to be built into the retirement plan to deal with that risk. The other risks we've already alluded to. I mean, because it's such a profound transition, you need to be getting clear on all those risks and having a plan to deal with them. So how do you get the clarity and confidence that you require? It's really about asking questions and seeking clarity. It's taking some time to reflect on what you want your retirement to look like and to begin writing down in very concrete ways what that transition is going to look like and ultimately how your retirement sort of will unfold over time. Here are just a few questions to think about. So, will I outlive my capital? Okay, so there's forecasting that needs to be done to confirm that you have sufficient assets. So really the question is, how much can I afford to draw down from my portfolio without having more life than income? Tied to that question is, what kind of returns do I need on my portfolio? So your investment portfolio is not going to be planned out in a vacuum. When you retire, you need to have clarity about what returns you need to get to fund the goals you have for retirement cash flow. And of course, the third question, how much can I afford to spend, is intimately tied to those first two questions. And one of the things we do for clients is forecast out drawdown rates to confirm what that spend rate is from an appropriate and long-term standpoint. What about long-term health care costs? And that's a big concern for a lot of retirees is, as we transition and lose our health, or one person in our in the couple loses their health, how do we deal with those costs? And how do I coordinate my various sources of income? A big part of what we do as a practice is looking at our Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, our RIF payments, our TFSAs, our pension plans from work, and how do we coordinate that to get the income we need tax effectively every single year. And then that's tied to deaccumulation strategies through retirement. How do we deaccumulate capital? We've gone through all these years, we've accumulated a nest egg. What's the prudent, judicious, appropriate, risk-adjusted way of doing that? So what I want to talk about is a bit of a process for creating clarity as it relates to retirement and ultimately giving you peace of mind that you're tracking in the right direction and that you have a solid plan. And where it starts, really, quite frankly, is in the whole area of coaching and having a retirement coaching process in place. This chart really speaks to the issue of the value of coaching. It looks at individuals, particularly in the investment area, where they've had a coaching relationship, and looks at the difference between advised households and non-advised households. And those people with advised households, those people with a coaching relationship in the financial arena, have upwards of almost 3 times the financial wealth than those people that don't have a coaching relationship. So behavioral coaching is critical to the success of people who transition to retirement. There's even psychological and emotional issues that come up around the benefits of coaching. So if you look at this chart, again, those households without an advisor is the red, the blue is advice households. So if you ask the question, do I feel confident that I'll have enough money to retire comfortably? Advice households have a much higher confidence rate. I'm satisfied with my household's current financial situation. Again, advice households feel more positive. Uncomfortable with the amount of debt I'm carrying. Same thing. And a year from now, do I think that I'll be financially better off than today? Advice households are more optimistic. So we put together a retirement coaching process. We feel that retirement coaching is powerful in terms of not just clarity, not just confidence, but also real dollars and cents benefits to the folks that go through our process. So how do you engage in the process? Well, first of all, if you go to our landing page that talks about the process, you can download our white paper that talks about retirement income planning and some of the critical steps that you need to engage in to be successful. We also include a sample snapshot. So our snapshot is just part of an overarching retirement income planning forecasting tool. But the snapshot really is designed to give people a sense of, am I on track? Do I have enough money so I don't outlive my capital? Once you've had a chance to read our white paper and look at our snapshot, if you're interested in going through the retirement income planning process and developing a coaching relationship, send us an email. Once we get the email at shumphries@assante.com, then we'll send you an information package that is the starting point to this process. We'll set up a no obligation call. You're not required to go through the process, but we'll explain the information package, how it works, what information you would need to gather together to begin that coaching and consulting relationship around the whole retirement planning process. If you decide to go through our coaching process, there's basically 5 distinct steps in that process. So step 1 is gathering information. Now, the information is kept confidential, and it can be gathered in such a way that the information is kept generic. We don't need to have social insurance numbers or account numbers or institutional names. We can keep it very generic. But we will need to gather information around, investments in your TFSAs, or do you have RSPs or RIF accounts? Do you have pension plans? Do you have RSP contribution room? All that basic information we do need, but we can do it and gather it in such a way that your privacy is protected. We then prepare financial forecasts. So we look at your situation much like a business would look like at their situation. We prepare a net worth statement, we do tax forecasts, we do retirement income planning forecasts, and those forecasts are critical to begin answering the question, how much can you afford to spend? What rate of return do you need to aspire to reach your goals? How do you structure your deaccumulation plan to pay the least amount of tax possible? How does your net worth change over the years as you begin to fund your retirement income? Those are really critical questions to get answered, and the financial forecasts help us and help you get the question answered about what the strategy needs to look like. Now, when we do the initial forecast, we'll begin to pinpoint gaps or opportunities. There might be some challenges that we need to take a look at, and there may be some planning opportunities that you can seize. And so it's a really great way of having sort of a second sort of third party to kind of look over your shoulder and confirm, listen, you're doing maybe a lot of things right, but here are 1 or 2 areas you may want to consider. Maybe there's a lot of things for you to be taking a look at. Once we get through that gaps and opportunity discussion, we then prepare a final report with a screencast video. And so you get a written report. And that report will include both the financial planning discussions and a second report that will talk about the implementation of those recommendations. And we include a screencast video that you can watch at your leisure, go through the report, watch the narrative on the screencast video so you can unpack the information in the comfort of your home. We then get together for a final meeting. That's the action plan discussion. We address your questions, outline to you how the implementation could take place, and specifically what you need to be doing with your financial advisor, with your accountant, with your lawyer, or other professionals in your situation to actually act on the planning process. So that's the coaching process that we have put together for people. So it usually ends up being at least 2 meetings. One meeting to review the financial forecasts and identify gaps and opportunities. A second meeting to go through the action plan and the discussion on how do you implement. And you also, like I said, get the financial planning reports, the implementation letter with a screencast video that unpacks that in more detail. Okay, so it's a very powerful process. When you get those reports, they're drafted in such a way that you can generically take them to any institution and implement. Often when we have people go through this process, they're in need of an ongoing coaching relationship. They need someone to help them actually implement the ideas. And of course, that's a big part of what we do. And we would welcome that discussion. But the initial coaching process does not presume that you want to become a client of our practice. It's a standalone process, and at the end of that, hopefully we've given you clarity, and if we've given you value and you want to have a conversation about how we can assist you on an ongoing basis to implement the recommendations, obviously we'd welcome that conversation. Well, I hope you enjoyed this basic introduction to our retirement coaching process. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our office at 204-977-8022. You can send me an email at shumphries@assante.com, and feel free to visit our website at shaunhumphries.com for various resources and videos and information you might find helpful. So I wish you all the best in your retirement income planning journey.